Hey everyone, Rob here. Got another book to look at today. We're looking at Wolverine by Marc Silvestri and Dan Green on the Art Chores, but shown in this collection in just a black and white rendering, no color. And that is something I, as an artist, everything I do is just black and white, pencil and ink on paper. And so getting to see the artist work that you love in the same way, so you can see what it looks like when they hand it off. It's really inspiring and instructive and very it's a special experience. This is a collection, the Essential Wolverine, Volume 2, Wolverine 20 through 47. There's some so-so artwork in here, and then there's some great stuff, especially by John Buscema towards the front. But I want to look at the Marc Silvestri stuff, though I don't want to skip while it's just one page away. Wolverine by Todd McFarlane. Man, that's this picture that just grabs you and makes you look at it. It's got all those things with McFarlane that he does that just kind of grabs your eye. The designy elements, the smoke and the blood on his claws, these lines in the sky. I really like the way he does that mask. That was just a great part of that Wolverine gallery. But enough about that. Wolverine, I've mentioned it before how he's obviously one of my favorite artists, and one of the best versions, if not the best version of Marc Silvestri's artwork is having Dan Green on the inking. It's hard to explain why his artwork here from Silvestri is very different from the stuff he does these days. I did a review of the Batman Joker Deadly Duo, and if you look at the two, you may not even be able to recognize it's the same artist if you're not familiar with the little ticks and elements and stylings that Silvestri does that make it look like his work. Just starting with the cover here, I just love this screamy face and these great shadows that he renders on that body. And then the great villain face here, these bad guys, the female face here. It's just great. I love that black and white here. This is one of, not the earliest, but one of the earliest comics I've ever read of Wolverine. And this is an era where he kind of had a disguise, where he just kind of dressed like a normal guy and had a patch over his eye just as a disguise. He called himself Patch. And it was a disguise. It's like Superman wearing glasses, just kind of gives him a different look. And he kind of goes about his business in this town that he lives in as just this regular guy. But just looking at the way that Silvestri does his work, it's one thing to be able to draw all the superhero stuff, but to draw the normal everyday human stuff is hard. That takes some real skill. It's one thing to learn like these just flowing curvy shapes of muscles and shadows and hair and knives and guns, but when you got to draw a guy in a suit, you know, draw a bartender, just a normal looking guy with a normal looking face, not a muscular face, like got a small chin, a little chubby. Draw a bar with, you know, a cigarette ashtray holder and bottles and a guy holding a shot glass in a suit. That suddenly shows how some artists have certain skills that other ones do not. And like I've said before, Silvestri, that guy can draw anything. I'm not going to bother, as usual, getting too much into the story, but just looking at the way that Silvestri draws certain things here, this is a great panel. The look on his face, he's kind of got heavy shadowing on here, and all these guys standing behind him. Like you've got some rendered figures here, and then just some dark shadowy shapes in the background to give a sense of a big crowd of people. Something that Silvestri does really well is he's got kind of a way of drawing things it's kind of simplistic once you figure out how to do it. It conveys the story and the setting and the idea they're trying to get across in a very simplistic way that looks more complicated than maybe it actually is. It's kind of hard to explain. We'll see if we can't run into a couple examples in here. This is great. It's a high angle shot, a bird's eye view, if you will, looking down. And it's raining outside. You can see in all these panels how there's all this rain. So how do you convey atmospherics with black and white line work? And this is there's actually a couple examples that are better than this, but this is one where it starts like, if you can see this figure here, and then just these little squiggly dashed off lines to indicate water, like it's the reflection in the ground, but it's water so it gives a reflective kind of mood. And then these kind of quick, sketchy lines to kind of illustrate it's rain and there's lighting coming from the ground and the windows and everything. But it just gives it, I don't know how else to describe it except atmospheric. It looks relatively simple, but you really got to know what you're doing to get that across. And all these panels continue with the same thing of these characters in the rain. You got like some water droplets all across the figure, the lines coming down. Obviously, she got an umbrella to show that. There's more of that way of rendering on the ground. It's like there's lights in the background and these just squiggly lines just give that indication of water on the ground. It's such a simple but completely effective way of doing it. Back with Wolverine, he's back at the counter and all these bad guys are gonna start a rumble, and so they just machine gun him to death, or so they think, blowing away this part here at the bar where he was sitting. And if you look at this, you completely read what's going on, but how simple it is. Just kind of a couple lines showing like it's the bar and a couple of stools getting blown away. There's not much to it, and yet everything's there. You completely get it. Wolverine, of course, dove behind the bar. This is funny. This barrel's leaking and just pouring onto his head there. I thought this was neat because this bad guy leans over the counter to see if he's dead, and Wolverine's got his hand up against the counter, and you just see Wolverine's face, and you hear the classic sound effect of Wolverine popping his claws. That guy's dead. And then here we go, jumping into the action. I love this simple but completely effective drawing. The heavy shadows, like the light source is coming from up top and the heavy shadows on it. It's just great, great, great. This is going on to another part of the story. I don't care about the story so much as just the great drawings. You can draw monkeys. These hands, the way the inking is done, this is something about Dan Green. These guys were putting out these books at a fast pace. So as an inker, he had to come up with an inking style where he gets things done quickly. So he does a lot of quick dashed off lines. You can tell you can just tell he's moving at a quick pace, but somehow he's moving at a quick pace, but it looks great. You can read what it is. That's the important thing, is that you can tell what's going on in the panel. And that's, as long as you get that, but they have an art style that just meshes together to be this really crazy, awesome style. Like this guy's face, that's a very cartoony human face, evil, sinister looking. Another kind of great Silvestri woman's face, the eyes, the hair, the nose. It's just so good. Back with Wolverine, angry, screamy face. These things are hard to draw. Like one guy fighting a crowd of people, getting all the figures to look distinct and individualistic. It's the spotting of the shadows and the black parts is key to that. I've always liked this shot right here. This guy busted a chair over Wolverine. That drawing of him is great. Here's another crowd shot of them just all dogpiling on him. And then here you got just some simple tables up front. Like you're composing this, you're like, okay, he's in a room. We got two tables and you got this little arch, palm tree branches, a little stair railing in the background. There's not a lot to it, but it reads and you know exactly what's going on. It's crazy good. This is fun. There's like this pillar that this guy is hiding behind. Wolverine slices through it and the guy. Things start coming down on him. This guy gets off one last shot and hits him. And I like this. You know he shoots, and he's not crazy explicitly showing like bullet. He's like, you're not seeing the bullets flying at him nor exploding out of him. You just kind of see his body reacting, like he goes stiff, and some of these little dots kind of give the idea that he's being impacted by something. That's an amazing way of rendering a character getting hit by bullets. And then he drops. Is he dead? I mean, it's Wolverine. Of course he's not, but that's just a great panel. This page right here is one of the best pages. There's so many great things going on, especially, so if we can't get it centered here, this long panel. Again, it looks complicated, but rendered simply. It's raining again, so these buildings in the distance are just kind of simple lines. They're not, the the farther away something is in the background, the less detailed it is. So the more you get up closer to the foreground, the more detailed you get. That's how anything is. Look at mountains that are way off in the distance. They're just kind of like a vague shape, but as you get closer to them, they suddenly get crazy detailed when you're seeing everything that's on them. It's the same thing with buildings and cities. This is another example of that ground where it looks like there's lights coming from everything. In fact, see these little squiggly round line shapes? That's a way of rendering like lights at night in a city in rain. And then like these lights are reflecting bright lights off the ground, and these little squiggly black dots and lines to give the indication that there's water on the ground. It's so good. I like the shadow lighting on these characters. I just love these panels right here. Moving on to the big old fight. I imagine this must have been fun for him. Here's another great thing where you got the characters in the background. The top parts of them are darkened in, but as you get lower on the figures, it becomes these line work, these kind of hatching lines to kind of show it fading out. It gives the idea that there's dust and smoke in the air, and it's part of the environment. You're not seeing much in the background, but you get an idea that there's like a battle going on in a fog or a mist or dust or whatever that's kind of phasing out, hazing out the figures. Really neat. This is great. This guy stabs him in the back, wakes him up. He kind of angles back, snaps the blade in his back, pulls it out through the front of him, and I think Wolverine's a little bit pissed. This is it's just like a series of dark shapes to show like head, arm, and he's flinging that blade through that guy. I love that drawing. The shadows and the folds and his clothes. It just reads so perfectly. There's such movement. Just and stabs him. He's gone. Another great shadowy shape. There's something to his artwork that's a Mike Mignola kind of vibe. The composition of the figures, the heavy shadows, the backgrounds, there's some kind of similar element to it. This is one of my favorite panels there. Again, if the guy's kind of faded out with the cross-hatching lines, Silvestri throws in some rubble here, rendered with just like black chunky shapes. It's almost unbelievable how he does it. It looks so simple. You look at it and like that's simple, but then you try and go do it as an artist and you don't come close. I only say that because I've done it a million times. Wolverine kind of disappeared on him, and then he's dropping in on him from above. This is kind of a repeat of the image in a way of that cover, but looks great. Heavily shadowed, angry face, claws ready to go. That is a great drawing right there. You're back with the other story, with the other characters. Not too concerned about it, but love her face. Love this face. The heavy shadow on the nose. This kind of crazy dark black background. The gestures of the fingers. Another great, simple but very identifiable high angle shot. There's more of that water texture on the ground. I like these creepy bad guys. I mean, they don't look like your typical evil villains with big muscles and sinister looking, muscular, dangerous men. They're like skinny little gangster creeps that will kill you. That's just a great drawing right there. They take these pills. I think they call it Thunderbolt, hence the design of the pill. They take it and it gives them some kind of like superpower advantage. I like this way this energy is crackling about them, and you see this shadowed look with their evil eyes, like they're hyped up, powered up, ready to go. Cars are so hard to draw. I hate it, but Silvestri, he can do it all. There's Wolverine standing amidst the bad guys he's dispatched, and these three guys from the previous page that kind of powered up. I'm guessing they're Yakuza, and they're showing their backs to him to show this. They've got these dragon tattoos spanning across the three of them. That's kind of interesting. I love the shadows, the hair, the figure on these guys. The simple line to show head, ears, shoulders, but then the shadows to give a defined three-dimensional figure. Love that face. All the shadow in the line. The way he renders the nose. All these thick, chunky lines to show the eye sockets and the bloodied lip. Oh, it's great, it's great, it's great. I always thought this panel was good with the shadows and the muscles, some quick line rendering there. I love these back muscles. Just that whole composition of that whole panel looks great. All of these panels are great. That's a good one there with all these guys grouped together. Just more fantastic art. I feel like I'm just repeating myself and probably pretty dull. But the fight goes on. It's moved into an alleyway. This guy pops a couple grenades. He's going to take him and everyone else out. So Wolverine grabs him, and they go over the side of a pier. They kind of establish it up here that they're outside in an alleyway or somewhere behind the building, but they're near a body of water. This is this pier, these little posts coming up, and the dock itself splooshed. They go underwater, and this bad guy's got Wolverine in chokehold and grenades, right? He's got grenades, and this guy's pointing out there's sharks in the water. You got the fins right there, but they're just kind of standing. I love the storytelling here. It's a repeat of the same panel from the same angle, but they're like, what's going on? This guy's like, there's sharks in there. I ain't jumping in to go in after my friend Wolverine. But then, boom, boom, the splash up of water. Those grenades have gone off. And then in this panel, you can see the bodies of the sharks just floating in the water. They're dead. And then the girl here, this is her ankle getting grabbed by Wolverine as he comes out of the water and scares her, makes her jump. They pull him out of the water. He survived. To be continued on to the next story, which starts here. That's enough for one. I just wanted to go through one issue. Honestly, I'll probably find a time to go through each one of these issues in this book. I mean, you can tell there's a lot, but go through all of them with Wolverine Silvestri artwork. Oh, right there, I landed on one of my favorite pages. Those drawings of Wolverine are so good. Yeah, I just might indulge myself and go through the whole thing, all of Silvestri's artwork. But that's enough for now. So yeah, let me know. Did you read this run when it was coming out? Do you like this combination of Silvestri and Dan Green on art? Was that something that you were into when it was going on? That was a great time in comics. Just such a weird, it's very unlike traditional superhero comics. It's like a real world action movie with a guy who's a superhero, but is never in a costume. That's some of the interesting elements about this run. And one of the reasons why I liked Wolverine as my favorite character back in the day. But I guess that's enough for me for now. As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And we'll see you with the next one. Bye.